The sleek alien vessels materialized at the edge of the Kepler system like silver daggers against the void. Their hulls gleamed with an otherworldly metal that seemed to bend light around it. Captain Lee Minho gripped the armrest of his command chair as he watched the massive coalition fleet take formation through the viewport of the UES Defiance. The alien ships moved with perfect coordination, their technology clearly centuries beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of creating. Min-ho had been exploring the outer systems for 3 years, pushing the boundaries of human space further than any captain before him. His crew was handpicked from Earth's finest, each member chosen for their skill and unwavering courage. They had faced pirates, asteroid storms, and the crushing loneliness of deep space. But nothing had prepared them for this moment. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the alien fleet, reported Lieutenant Park Ji-woo from the communications station. His voice carried a slight tremor despite his training. Whatever they're packing, it's enough to vaporize our entire squadron without breaking a sweat. The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of the ship's systems. Every crew member understood the gravity of their situation. They were facing an enemy that could destroy them with ease, yet none of them suggested retreat. That wasn't the human way. Incoming transmission, Ji-woo announced, his fingers dancing across the control panel. They're using some kind of universal translator. The signal is coming through clear. Minho straightened in his chair and nodded. Put it through. The holographic display flickered to life in the center of the bridge, revealing the imposing figure of Admiral Kethfer of the Zephyrian Coalition. The alien commander stood nearly 8 feet tall, his elongated features sharp and angular. His skin had a pale blue tint, and his eyes glowed with an inner light that spoke of a species that had ruled the stars for millennia. Golden armor covered, his chest marked with symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Primitive humans, the alien's voice resonated through the bridge's translation system, each word dripping with contempt. You will cease your expansion beyond this point. Your species lacks the wisdom to join galactic civilization. Return to your homeworld and accept our guidance. The crew exchanged glances, their faces showing a mixture of fear and anger. They had spent generations reaching for the stars, sacrificing everything to push humanity beyond the confines of Earth. Now this alien stood before them, demanding they abandon their dreams and submit to his rule. Commander Kim So-young stepped forward. From her position at the tactical station, her jaw was set with the same determination that had driven her to become one of Earth's youngest starship commanders. Her dark eyes blazed with defiance as she faced the holographic alien. We don't take orders from anyone, she declared, her voice steady and strong. Humanity explores where it chooses. We've fought for every star system we've claimed, and we won't be turned back by threats. The alien's expression darkened, his glowing eyes narrowing as he studied the human commander. Around the bridge, the crew held their breath. They all knew that So-young's words could either save humanity or doom it to extinction. You misunderstand your position, Admiral Kethfer continued, his voice taking on a more menacing tone. We have eliminated species far more advanced than yours. Civilizations that possessed weapons you cannot imagine, technologies that could reshape reality itself. They all fell before the might of the Coalition. He gestured with one clawed hand, and the display showed images of dead worlds, their surfaces scarred and lifeless. Cities that had once reached toward the heavens lay in ruins, their inhabitants long since turned to dust. This is your only warning, the alien admiral said, his voice now carrying the weight of absolute authority. Turn back now, or face the consequences of your arrogance. The galaxy has no place for a species that cannot learn its proper place in the natural order. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the human fleet alone in the vast darkness of space. The bridge remained silent for several long moments as the crew processed what they had just witnessed. They had always known that humanity was young compared to the age of the universe. But seeing proof of civilizations that had risen and fallen before Earth was even formed was sobering. Minho looked around at his crew, seeing the same defiant spark in their eyes that had driven humanity to reach for the stars in the first place. Lieutenant Park Ji-woo sat straighter at his station, his earlier nervousness replaced by grim determination. Commander Kim So-young returned to her tactical display, already analyzing the alien fleet's formation for weaknesses. "Sir," Ji-woo said quietly, "Earth Command is requesting our status report." Minho stood slowly, his decision already made. He thought of the colonies that depended on supply runs from ships like his, of the families who had left Earth to build new lives among the stars, of the children who would grow up never knowing the feel of their homeworld's gravity. All of it would be lost if they backed down now. "Set course for the Centauri colonies," he ordered, his voice carrying across the bridge with absolute conviction. "We're not backing down." 3 months had passed since the confrontation at Kepler, and the Coalition's patience had finally run out. Admiral Kethfer stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display show the positions of human colonies scattered across the outer rim. The primitive species had ignored his warning completely, continuing their expansion as if the Coalition meant nothing to them. "Target the mining colony of New Busan," he ordered his weapons officer. "A quick strike will show them the price of defiance." The first strike came without warning in the early hours of the colony's morning cycle. The orbital bombardment was swift and devastating, turning the settlement's outer defenses to molten slag within minutes. The Coalition's energy weapons carved through the protective barriers like they were made of paper. The humans' primitive shields collapsed under the assault. But something unexpected happened. The humans didn't break, deep beneath the colonies. Surface. Sergeant Yoon Da-hai gathered her surviving fighters in the mining tunnels that honeycombed the asteroid. She was a tough woman in her 30s, her face scarred from years of dangerous excavation work. Her hands were steady as she checked her weapon, a modified mining laser that had been hastily converted for combat. "Listen up," she told her ragtag group of miners, security guards, and civilian volunteers. "They think they can walk in here and take our home. They're about to learn what happens when you corner a human." The Coalition ground forces that landed expected to find a broken, surrendering population. Instead, they found a nightmare. Da-hai had turned the mining tunnels into a maze of death. Every corridor became a trap, every junction a killing ground. The humans used mining charges as improvised bombs, turning support beams into deadly projectiles. They rigged the tunnel lights to explode when triggered, blinding the alien soldiers in critical moments. Subcommander Velteris led the assault force through the twisting passages, his soldiers' advanced armor providing some protection against the crude human weapons. But the miners knew every inch of their home, and they fought with a desperation that caught the Coalition troops off guard. "They're not fighting like any species we've encountered," Velteris reported to Admiral Kethfer over the comm system. His voice carried a note of confusion and growing concern. "They refuse to surrender, even when defeat is certain, using tactics we've never seen before." The humans had no formal military training, but they had something more dangerous: the knowledge that they were fighting for their homes and families. Da-hai's fighters would collapse tunnels on their own positions if it meant trapping Coalition soldiers. They used the colony's industrial equipment as weapons, turning mining robots into remote-controlled bombs and/or processors into projectile launchers. On the second day of fighting, a Bouge team ambushed a Coalition squad in the main processing center. The aliens' energy weapons were powerful, but they were designed for open warfare, not the close-quarters combat of the tunnels. The humans used the massive machinery as cover, darting between conveyor belts and ore crushers to strike at their enemies. "Fall back to Junction 7, Da-hai ordered over her comm unit as Coalition reinforcements arrived. "We'll make them pay for every meter." The fighting continued for 6 brutal days. The Coalition had superior weapons, better armor, and overwhelming numbers. But the humans had something the aliens had never encountered before: willingness to sacrifice everything for their cause. Miners who had never held a weapon in their lives died fighting alongside security guards and maintenance workers, all united by their refusal to give up. Similar scenes played out across other human colonies. On Kepler for 4-B, the agricultural settlement's farmers used their harvesting equipment as weapons, turning crop dusters into chemical weapon delivery systems. At Proxima Station, Research facilities scientists created improvised explosives from laboratory chemicals, turning their workplace into a fortress. Dr. Choi Hae-woo, the chief scientist of New Busan, worked frantically in his laboratory as the sounds of battle echoed through the tunnels above. He was a quiet man who had dedicated his life to studying asteroid composition, but now he was humanity's last hope for learning about their enemies. His hands flew over his instruments as he analyzed captured coalition equipment, recording everything he could discover about their technology. "Earth Command, they hit us with everything they had," he transmitted as the communication array sparked and failed around him. "We made them bleed for every meter. The data on their weapons and tactics is in the emergency beacon. Make them pay." The transmission cut off as Coalition soldiers finally breached the laboratory. Dr. Choi smiled grimly as he activated the self-destruct sequence, taking the alien squad with him in a final act of defiance. When the colony finally fell, Admiral Kethfer walked through the smoldering ruins of New Busan, his confidence badly shaken. The humans had fought with a ferocity that bordered on madness, caring nothing for their own survival if it meant inflicting damage on their enemies. Nearly a third of his assault force was lost, taking a single human settlement, casualties that would have been unthinkable against any other species. The other colonies had fallen too, but the cost was staggering. The Coalition had lost more ships and soldiers in these 3 battles than in their last 10 conquests combined. The humans had no formal military, no advanced weapons, no strategic training. Yet they had made the galaxy's most powerful force, paid dearly for their victory. "Prepare the full fleet," Kethfer ordered his staff, his voice heavy with grim determination. "If they want war, we'll give them war." The Coalition's invasion of human space began like a storm sweeping across the galaxy. Their massive fleets moved from system to system, systematically destroying Earth's outer colonies with ruthless efficiency. The advanced energy weapons of the alien ships carved through human defenses like hot knives through butter, their powerful shields easily absorbing humanity's primitive kinetic rounds and missile attacks. Admiral Kethfer watched the tactical displays with satisfaction as his forces reported victory after victory. The humans had shown surprising courage in defending their mining colonies, but now they faced the full might of the Coalition war machine. Their crude weapons and improvised tactics would surely crumble before centuries of perfected military strategy. But something unexpected began to happen. Humanity started to adapt on Luna Base. General Kong Tommen stood before a wall of screens showing the desperate battles raging across human space. The gray-haired veteran had fought in Earth's last great war decades ago, but nothing had prepared him for this. He watched as human engineers performed what could only be called miracles of improvisation, turning peaceful vessels into instruments of war. "Status report," he ordered his staff, his voice calm despite the chaos surrounding them. "Sir, the civilian cargo haulers from the Titan shipping lanes have been converted to kamikaze ships," reported his aide. "They're loading them with nuclear warheads and programming them for suicide runs against Coalition vessels. Across the solar system, desperate humans were transforming their entire civilization into a war machine. Asteroid miners that had spent years peacefully extracting or were being retrofitted with nuclear charges, turning them into massive bombs that could cripple enemy ships. Civilian factories that had once produced consumer goods now churned out weapons designed by mines, pushed to their absolute limits. The transformation was remarkable to witness. Dr. Park Minesco, former toy designer, had created a new type of space mine that looked harmless but contained enough explosive power to crack a Coalition frigate in half. Engineer Kim Woojin had modified construction robots to serve as remote-controlled fighters, sending them into battle while safely controlling them from hidden bunkers. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Soul's Pride," announced Major Han the Jin from her communication station. Her voice carried excitement despite the grim circumstances. "They're reporting successful boarding of a Coalition cruiser." General Kang leaned forward, his interest piqued. Boarding enemy vessels was considered nearly impossible given the Coalition's superior technology, but the humans were proving that determination could overcome technological disadvantages. "Lieutenant Seo Ji-hun's team has secured their quantum core," the Jin continued. They're downloading everything they can before the ship's self-destruct activates. This was the breakthrough they had been waiting for. Within hours, the stolen data was being transmitted to research facilities across human space. Scientists who had spent their careers studying peaceful applications of technology now worked around the clock to understand and replicate alien weapons. Dr. Lim Kung-soo led one of the most important research teams. Working in a converted subway station beneath Seoul, the underground laboratory hummed with activity as teams of scientists dismantled, captured coalition equipment piece by piece. They worked in shifts, catching brief moments of sleep before returning to their research with renewed desperation. The energy weapon systems are incredibly complex, Lim explained to his team during one of their rare breaks. But they're based on principles we understand. We just need to find a way to replicate them with our materials. The breakthrough came when they discovered that human manufacturing techniques, while primitive, could actually improve upon certain aspects of coalition technology. Human engineers had developed methods of mass production that the aliens had never considered, allowing them to create weapons more quickly and efficiently than their enemies. Within weeks, human forces were fielding energy weapons that matched coalition firepower. The war that Admiral Kethfer had expected to last months stretched into years as humanity refused to surrender. Human forces struck from hidden bases scattered throughout asteroid fields, using guerrilla tactics that had never been seen in space warfare. The coalition's traditional strategies began to fail against an enemy that refused to fight conventionally. When they destroyed Earth's orbital habitats, humans simply built new ones inside asteroids, making them nearly impossible to detect. When they targeted population centers, entire cities disappeared underground, their inhabitants continuing to fight from vast tunnel networks. Captain Lee Dongwoo commanded one of the hidden bases inside the asteroid belt. His facility carved out of a rock that had been drifting in space for millions of years. His fighters would emerge without warning to attack coalition supply convoys, then vanish back into the endless field of debris before enemy reinforcements could arrive. "They're learning to expect us everywhere," he reported to General Kong during one of their encrypted communications, "but that's exactly what we want. If they have to guard every supply line, every transport, every communication relay, they'll spread themselves too thin." The strategy was working. Admiral Kethfer found himself commanding a war machine that was slowly grinding itself to pieces against an enemy that refused to die. His forces controlled the major star systems, but the humans had made every victory costly. They turned every asteroid into a potential weapons platform, every derelict ship into a booby trap. The coalition had never faced an enemy like this before. Other species had surrendered when faced with overwhelming force, but the humans seemed to grow stronger, the more desperate their situation became. They were rewriting the rules of warfare itself, proving that technological superiority meant nothing against a species that refused to accept defeat. By the third year of the conflict, the coalition had begun to understand the magnitude of their mistake. What had started as a simple conquest of a primitive species had turned into the bloodiest war in galactic history. Intelligence reports flowing into Admiral Kethfer's command center painted a terrifying picture of human capabilities that had been carefully hidden during the early battles. The first revelation came from an unexpected source. Captain Oh Soo-jin had been leading a desperate assault on a coalition research facility built into one of Saturn's moons. The facility had been studying human prisoners, trying to understand what made this species so different from every other race the coalition had encountered. But when Soo-jin's team finally breached the inner chambers, they discovered something that chilled them to the bone. "Command, you need to see this," Soo-jin transmitted back to Earth, her voice tight with disbelief. They weren't just studying us, they were preparing for total war. The captured files revealed the shocking truth. While the coalition had been treating humanity as just another primitive species to be conquered, humans had been conducting secret research programs that defied all expectations. The evidence was overwhelming and terrifying in its scope. Deep in underground laboratories that had been built years before first contact, human scientists had been developing weapons that could destabilize stars themselves. The research was so advanced that it made Coalition technology look primitive by comparison. Dr. Yang Sumin had been working on stellar manipulation devices that could trigger supernovas, while Dr. Kim Jae-soon had perfected genetic viruses specifically tailored to Coalition biology. The most disturbing discovery was a series of artificial intelligences designed for strategic warfare. These weren't simple computer programs, but thinking machines that could process battle data faster than any organic mind. They had been analyzing Coalition tactics for years, learning from every encounter and developing countermeasures that would make human resistance infinitely more effective. Major Bae Jin-ho received the order to deploy humanity's first Prometheus device during an assault on a heavily fortified Coalition stronghold. The enemy base was built into a small moon in the outer rim, surrounded by energy shields and defended by the Coalition's most advanced weapons. Traditional attacks had failed completely, leaving hundreds of human ships destroyed in the attempt. Units fall back to minimum safe distance, Jin-ho ordered as his team prepared the device. We're about to show them what humans can really do. The Prometheus device was small, no larger than a briefcase, but it contained technology that represented the culmination of human scientific achievement. When Jin-ho activated it, the weapon didn't just destroy the enemy base. It cracked the moon itself, splitting the celestial body down the middle and sending massive chunks of debris spinning into space. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away, a brilliant flash of light that announced to the galaxy that humanity had crossed a new threshold. The Coalition forces in the area retreated in terror, unable to comprehend a weapon that could destroy an entire moon with such ease. Admiral Kethfer watched the tactical displays in his command center, his confidence finally shattered completely. The readings showed energy signatures that should have been impossible for a species as young as humanity to produce. His tactical officers were struggling to understand how humans had developed such devastating weapons while appearing to fight a desperate defensive war. We've been playing defense, he realized with growing horror. They've been preparing for offense. The revelation transformed his understanding of the entire conflict. While the Coalition had been focused on conquering human colonies and breaking their spirit, humanity had been using the war as a cover for something much more sinister. They had been preparing for a level of warfare that would make the current conflict look like a minor skirmish. Intelligence reports began flooding in from across Coalition space, each one more disturbing than the last. Dr. Moon Ayong's research. Teams had spent years seeding the galaxy with hidden installations, building a network of secret bases that stretched across hundreds of star systems. These weren't simple observation posts, but fully equipped military facilities capable of launching devastating attacks. Even more terrifying was the discovery of sleeper agents who had infiltrated Coalition worlds. These weren't spies in the traditional sense, but humans who had been living among alien populations for years, gathering intelligence and preparing for the day when they would be activated. They had access to critical infrastructure, government facilities, and military installations across the galaxy. The final piece of the puzzle came when Coalition intelligence discovered the existence of doomsday devices hidden in star systems. Across known space, these weapons had been placed in strategic locations waiting for the signal to activate. Each device was capable of destroying an entire solar system, turning stars into weapons of mass destruction. Admiral Kethfer composed his final report to the Coalition Council with hands that trembled slightly. The document would change everything, revealing the truth about humanity that would shake the foundation of galactic civilization. Humanity is not just another species to be conquered, he wrote. They are something the galaxy has never encountered before. A species that becomes exponentially more dangerous when pushed to the brink of extinction. We have not been fighting a war of conquest. We have been fighting for our very survival, and we may have already lost. The Coalition Council received the report with growing horror, finally understanding that they had awakened something that could destroy them all. The massive Coalition fleet approached the Sol system with grim determination. Every ship from across the galaxy had joined this final assault. It would destroy Earth and end the human threat forever. But when they arrived, they found nothing. Empty space stretched where Earth should have been. The planet had vanished completely. Then every screen in the Coalition fleet lit up at once. Commander Kim Soyoung appeared before them, her face marked by 3 years of brutal war. Behind her floated the blue world of Earth, hanging in an impossible starfield that didn't belong to any known system. You're probably wondering where. We went, she said calmly. We told you we don't back down. We also don't fight fair. The truth hit the Coalition like a physical blow. Humanity had developed technology beyond anything they had imagined. They had moved their entire homeworld into a pocket dimension that existed outside normal space. Earth and all its billions of people had become ghosts, impossible to find and impossible to reach. Admiral Kethfer felt his heart sink as he realized what this meant. The humans weren't just hiding. They had made themselves untouchable while still being able to strike anywhere in the galaxy. Here's what happens next. Soyoung continued, her voice carrying across the void to every Coalition vessel. We've placed quantum bombs throughout your space. They're connected to Deadman switches on every human world and station. If we're wiped out completely, the explosions will cascade across the galaxy. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the assembled fleet. These aren't ordinary weapons. They'll tear holes in space-time itself. Your worlds won't just be destroyed. They'll be erased from existence, and the damage will spread until the entire galaxy becomes a lifeless void. The Coalition commanders stared at their screens in horrified silence. The humans had built the ultimate deterrent. They had made it impossible to destroy them without destroying everything else. Soyoung leaned forward, her eyes burning with the same fierce defiance that had started this war 3 years ago. We told you to turn back at the beginning. You forced us to finish it this way. Now we're both prisoners of what we've created. The implications were staggering. The Coalition couldn't attack humanity without triggering galactic annihilation, but they also couldn't ignore the humans, who could now strike from their hidden dimension whenever they chose. Admiral Kethfer looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. They all wore the same expression of shocked defeat. The primitive species they had tried to conquer had outmaneuvered them completely. You have a choice, Soyoung said. You can try to hunt us down and risk destroying everything that lives in this galaxy, or you can accept that we're here to stay and learn to coexist with us. The Admiral realized with growing horror that there was no third option. The humans had created a situation where everyone either lived together or died together. There could be no middle ground. We never wanted to rule you, Soyoung continued. We just wanted to be left alone. But you wouldn't let us have that, so now we're all stuck with each other, whether we like it or not. The Coalition fleet hung motionless in space, their weapons useless against an enemy they couldn't find. Humans had become something beyond victory or defeat. Yes. They had made themselves into a force of nature that the galaxy would have to accept. Admiral Kethfer finally understood the true nature of humanity's greatest weapon. It wasn't their technology, or their ability to adapt. It was their absolute refusal to submit to anyone or anything, even if that refusal meant the end of everything. The war ended not with explosions or surrender, but with a terrible new understanding. Some species don't just fight to win. Fight to ensure that if they can't be free, no one else can either. As the Coalition fleet slowly began to withdraw, every commander knew that the galaxy had changed forever. They had learned a lesson that would echo through the stars for generations to come. Never corner a species that would rather destroy the universe than accept chains. The humans had won by making victory impossible for everyone. They had forced the galaxy to choose between coexistence and mutual destruction. And in doing so, they had proven that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who refuses to lose, no matter what the cost. The stars would remember this day as the moment when a small, stubborn species taught the galaxy that some fights can only end when no one can afford to continue them.